thing we can worry about. We're going to get some bands, by the way, off this, a little coastal winds and some rain, but that's about it. So why the generator? Well, obviously, people lose power, but they went beyond hurricanes. I mean, it's the obvious you lose power, but they were talking about the power grid. It's something that I've talked about for years. Chuck Harder talked about it for years. Ted Koppel's talked about it for years. When you have, a retiree from the CIA coming on a Generac commercial telling you about how old and ailing the nation's infrastructure is from the power grid, over 50 years old, and the reason why they don't repair it and bring it up to snuff is because it would cost over $10 trillion. Over that. They said that's just a modest number. So you don't have to live in a state that has hurricanes. You can have tornadoes. You could have rolling blackouts. You could have somebody that taps into the power grid and brings it down, shuts it down. And some of you that live in rural areas, you know that your power company has spotty, once, twice, 3 times a month, you might get a power outage, and sometimes it comes on right away. Sometimes you got to wait hours. It could happen in the middle of the night, during your dinner, where you're cooking on electric. And I was thinking, you know what? Every house should have a generator. Now you say, I got a gasoline one. Well, they don't do gasoline. Chuck was way ahead of his time. Back in the 80s, he had a generator, and he converted it to propane. Generac, it just comes, in a nice case, and it's hooked up to your mobile, where you can monitor it to see if it's on or off when you're away from home, just to make sure. Some people have animals, and you can't have the pumps go off in your well and all this stuff. But Generac, if you're looking for a generator for the storm season, I would suggest getting one. And just for power outages or terrorism or anything, that should be a big investment. And you can get them starting at about $1,400. That's like the starting price. And then you can get one. It depends on how big your household is. But I recommend that you have your own power and don't rely on just the solar panels, because that's not going to be enough. And when they're stringing wires through their house, you could cause a fire. And it's only going to run your refrigerator and a fan and maybe a light. That's not going to run your household. When you have a complete generator, it runs the entire household as if you never lost power at all. So you want to think about that. If you have a house, you own the structure that you're in, you plan on staying there. You want to invest in a generator, folks. I'm not making a dime off telling you this for the Generac company, because I haven't even reached out to them. I'm just that impressed with what I've read about them in my research that I invite you to check them out for yourself and take a look at it. I just think it's wise for the times that we live, folks. We live in some very vicarious times. We really, truly do. We have so many disenfranchised people in this country that I wouldn't put past people in our own country to take our power grid down to make a statement. I'm not even kidding you. It's just no telling what people will do. There's a lot of crazies out there. And the problem is, you're not going to be able to rely on Uncle Sam to save you. They can only do so many things for so many people. And if you think about millions of people, they have to come to the rescue. Where do you fall in those numbers? So just having a plan in itself is great insurance. And anybody that they interviewed that had these things hooked up to either it was their mobile home or modular home or, just a plain built home that had one of these said it was the best thing that they ever did. And they wish that they invested in the generator before the boat, before the actual, when you renovate the house, before the barn was built, before the jet skis, before any of these. They should have built in that generator on propane. You can put 2, 3, 4 tanks out there, buddy, and you could be going over a year or two, and you can bury them into the ground where they're not even an eyesore. You're worried about that? They can go into the ground, and you could have years worth of supply there, and where everybody else's lights are off, yours are going to be on. And so, anyway, something to think about, folks. I'm mourning right now, along with so many people that heard about this great American hero that tried to save these kids in the cave. This story just breaks your heart. Yeah, a former Navy SEAL. He was assisting in the rescue of a youth soccer team and a coach that happens to be trapped deep inside a partially flooded cave complex. Yeah, the SEAL died today from a lack of oxygen, of all things. And even as another volunteer suggested, a daring attempt to free the group could take place a little bit later on today. 12 boys, folks. They're the officials there in Thailand, they're warning that the window of opportunity, as they're calling it, to save the 12 boys and their coach limited. And the diver's death raises, all sorts of questions about proposed rescue routes. One of them, from what I heard this morning on Fox and Friends, was they're trying to drill somewhere where they can just walk out. They've been trying to avoid that because they were afraid of cave-in. But they're going to have to do something because these kids can't swim. And with that equipment, you got this Navy SEAL that died. He lost his way. What do you think is going to happen to those kids? Folks, pray for a miracle in this situation. Now, I don't know the backstory of the backstory, and it's been killing me. And I'm going to have to find out. But how in the world did they just wander into this thing? And do you know? All right, hold on for a second. All right, introduce yourself, please.
I'm Mike Garrett. I'm here visiting with Keith in the studio today and enjoying fully the program.
All right, so what happened? How did these kids and the coach, did they just wander into the cave out of curiosity?
Apparently, the coach took the kids as a reward on a little cave tour each time that they had a successful practice. However, the rains came in a flash flood, and their only choice was to go deeper into the cave.
They thought they were being safe.
That was the idea. Even though there were warning signs posted in the cave, do not go beyond here.
Oh, boy.
The only choice he had to avoid the rising water was to go farther into the cave.
And they got trapped.
And they were trapped.
Okay.
And the rains continued.
Okay. So there's the backstory for the story. And that's a good thing that you were here. Because it was killing me. It was eating me up inside.
Well, it sounds like that this guy made a big mistake, but he didn't. This was a normal thing they did all the time. People are always going in the cave.
Okay.
They didn't expect that much rain. The problem now is, even though they've reached the kids, the water levels are continuing to rise. They're pumping it out.
Monsoon, as they call it, is coming in, and they got a really limited window to get these boys out.
Yes, and ironically, the diver who died was taking more oxygen tanks into the cave at the time.
That's a shame.
And the danger is that there are places that they have to walk, which is where the water level is up to the shoulders of adults. Well, these kids can't swim. It would be over their heads. They need the dive gear. They have to fit through crevices. They're all weak because they've been in there for 14 days now without
no food.
Yes, until they've reached them. Now they've got food, but
they can't eat all the food all at once because they can kill them.
Exactly.
So it has very limited amount of food to bring their bodies up to speed, because that's you can live without food for a certain time. You can't live without water.
Well, and if you understand, these kids went in there relatively worn out of electrolytes and liquids because they were practicing soccer. Then they're drinking only rainwater, and now they're getting some food, and they're running out of oxygen in the cave because of all the activity that's going on.
Salmon Coonan was the 38-year-old that lost his life. He was the deceased volunteer rescuer. He was returning at about 1 a.m. from the chamber where the boys are trapped, and he was already there helping the boys, and he was going to go back, and he passed out and died. So Coonan had left the SEALs back in 2006 to work in Bangkok's airport as an emergency rescue officer. So he loved the culture, he loved the people, and it's beautiful. If you've ever spent any time over there, the people are beautiful, and they embraced him, he embraced them, and it's just, this is one of those stories, heartbreaking, but you got to keep them in your prayers, keep prayer alive. It's a shame that the rescue worker had to lose his life, but that's what rescue workers do. They risk their lives to save lives, and we'll not forget him, and we're not forgetting those kids. Man, that's a story. Remember the kid down the well? Kid that, it was a Jessica, or a little girl that fell down the well back in the 80s. Remember that story?
Yes, and that was a number of days, and that was one child.
One child.
And here we have
14.
And a great number of professional rescuers and divers. This is not an amateur attempt to get them out. These guys are all well trained. This is an extremely difficult situation.
Yeah. So thanks for that information. Good stuff. Mike Garrett, thanks so much. All right. So our next story, we're going to talk about this feminist activist, and she's confused. Why is she confused? You're not going to believe this one. She's confused because she saw blacks, okay, with pro-NRA and Tea Party bumper stickers. I'm not even kidding. I can't make this stuff up. An activist author, okay, ignited a social media firestorm yesterday after saying that she was left very confused. Once again, seeing a black man with a pro-NRA and a Tea Party bumper sticker on his car. Kimberly Johnson, a feminist, contributor to the Huffington Post, and the spokeswoman for the national advocacy group We Are Woman, was slammed for questioning why a black person would not embrace progressive policies. I am serious here. Now, on the road the other day, she says, I saw an affluent black man driving a BMW with two bumper stickers. One was pro-NRA, and the other one was Tea Party sticker that read, "Don't tread on me," she wrote in a now deleted tweet. This left me very confused. I got to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. I live in Tampa. We got a lot of black people that live in Tampa, okay? We have a lot of black people that live in Florida. And I don't just run, and I got to tell you, I got to make this very clear. The name of the show is For the People. I know people in high and low places, all right? I don't hang out in the hood, but I don't mind going to the hood to get my barbecue, all right? And doing business with local small businesses. So I believe in keeping it home, keeping our money local. And that's a beautiful thing in supporting local businesses. But I know plenty of black people that are conservative, that carry guns. Yeah. And they love our country, and they're conservative. They voted, it's hard to believe, for Donald Trump. Now, some of those same voters, okay, voted for Barack Obama. And I was very hopeful for Barack Hussein Obama when he ran. I thought, let's give the guy, the first black president, let's give the guy the benefit of the doubt. Okay? Let's see what he can do. Because his hope and change message in Chicago was electrified. People were crying. It was almost like you were at a church service and people were getting saved. I mean, people were touched and very emotional. I saw Juan Williams cry on national TV. And of course, he's a contributor on Fox News Channel, but I watched him for years on PBS. Great guy, but cried. Oprah Winfrey cried. This was, if you were a person of color, or you were a minority, you felt like for the first time, finally, the barrier's been broke. We're going to turn a corner. And we're gonna move on as a country and as a people, more united than ever. And that was my thought, folks. Do you think that we've turned that corner? Do you think his presidency united people? Do you think that he was a uniter? Now, you answer